So, of course, if you can write files, you should also be able to read files.
This video is brought to you by OppiePie's Academy.
You'll notice here in my directory, I have a file called poem.txt. It's got inside there, of course, a very short poem. Now, let's say I'd like to read that into my program and display it on the screen. So I'll write my Python program right here. And the first thing we're going to do once again is we're going to read the file. So again, I'll call the file pointer myFile. I'll use the open command, and we're opening poem.txt, and this time for reading. So we're using the R+ mode for our file, the R+ access mode. Now, R means open file for reading only, and the file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file. R+ opens for both reading and writing. Now, we don't have to write to the file, but we can here if we choose to. So now, reading the file is actually pretty easy. We're going to use the read method, and that reads a string. So let's go ahead and create a variable called poem. That'll contain the text once it's read, and then we're going to use myFile.read. Now notice the parentheses there. There's an optional parameter called count, and we could put in there the number of bytes, not the number of characters, but the number of bytes to be read. Now, if you don't know much about computer memory, different architectures, different types of machines and operating systems might store characters a little differently. You might have 2 bytes per character or 4 bytes per character if you're using a different type of operating system. So here we're just saying read, which is going to read up all the bytes that are in our poem. Now there's a danger here. If it can't get to the end of the file, then it's going to read as much as possible. If the file's too long, eventually we'll have kind of an overflow issue. All right, so let's go ahead and print the poem. And then, of course, myFile.close. I forget that sometimes, and you probably will too when you're first getting started. But it's a really bad habit. You want to make sure that you always close whatever file you're working with. All right, so let's call this file read.py. And now let's go ahead and get a new command line window where we can run this. All right, so Python file read, and there's our poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, Chicago is west of New York, and Los Angeles is too. That is my own poetry work. I do hope you're impressed. So what we did is we took a plain text file, right? Poem is a plain text file, and we displayed it inside of our Python program by creating a file pointer that pointed to it and then reading it in. Now, I want to talk a little more about this idea of the file pointer and the position in the file. So let's say I said here, let's go ahead and minimize this, file read 5. So I'm changing that from just the blank to file read 5. And then let's print the poem. All right, let's see what happens to our results. Let's go ahead and bring that terminal window back up. So again, let's run it. And we get roses. ROSES. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 bytes or 5 characters here. Now, that means that after that happens, the file pointer is actually right here. So it's pointing at this position, the file pointer. Think of it as like a record needle that runs back and forth through your program. All right, so here we've got myFile read 5. Before we print out the poem, or what's been read in, which is just a position 5, I want to read the position of the file pointer. So we use myFile.tell for that. And that'll tell you the position of the file pointer. Make sure I spelled everything right. P-O-S-I-T-I-O-N. Good. Looks good. So let's go ahead and save. And let's run this again now with this tell statement in here, giving us the position of the file pointer. So here we go. Position of file pointer, 5. So that tells us, okay, the position of the file pointer is 5, tells us exactly where we are in the actual program, or in the actual text file. For more advanced files, you may need to manually advance the file pointer or move the file pointer through the file itself. So the tell command gives you the ability to see exactly where you are in the file. So that's just kind of a quick look at reading a file into a Python program. We use the open command again to create a file pointer, but this time in R+ mode. We used read, and then we read in a specific number of bytes, and tell to give us the position of the file pointer within the file itself.